Hey everyone, Chinese Man here with another round of programming review. So, in the titles, if you see it's called Flash, it's my first time attempting it. If you see review, it's me going over it. And if you see live code, then it's just me going over what it's like to live code it in front of someone else. So, this is a review, which means I'll go over the code and what I was thinking in order to make it. So, the question is Fizzbuzz. Write a program that outputs a string representations of numbers from 1 to n, but for multiples of 3 should output fizz, and for multiples of 5 output buzz, and numbers that are multiples of both 3 and 5 output fizzbuzz. So it should output the representation of the numbers. So for example, it goes 1 to 15, and then 1 is 1, 2 is 2, 3 is divisible by 3, so it's fizz, 4, 5 is divisible by 5, so it's buzz, 6 is divisible by 3, so fizz, and so on. So right away I'm thinking, okay, so I need to go through all the numbers from 1 to n. So that's going to be a loop. As for why 1 to n, is because we're going to have n outputs. There might be a way to, I guess, do it without going through n iterations, but I mean, at that point you're just doing, I guess, more steps per iteration. So it just makes sense to go through n iterations. So I set up a for loop to go through from 1 to n. And notice that each time it processes is fairly independent. So for example, when I process 2, I don't really care about what 1 was like. When I process 3, I don't really care what 2 is like. So I set up a result variable here on line 6 that's an array. It's outside of the for loop, and the reason for that is because I still want that variable to be accessible when I eventually return it. If I declare it within the for loop, for example, it's block scoped for let and const, so therefore it won't be accessible to return it outside of the loop. I could return, and it'll reinitialize every time it goes through the loop. So as I go through the loop, essentially if it's a multiple of 3 and 5, it's fizzbuzz. And if it's a multiple of 3, then it's fizz. Multiple of 5 is buzz. Otherwise, it's just that number. The reason why I use toString is that if I don't use the toString, it'll put in the actual integer number and not the string. And notice here when we look at the example, 1 is a string representation, and that is also what the instructions say as well. So it's fairly straightforward. Fizzbuzz is a common, I guess, intro algorithm problem. I don't anticipate that you'll really see it during an interview, but it's a classic, so hence including it here. Notice that here it's not really outputting the representation. It actually expects a return of an array with all the numbers as strings, including modifications necessary. So that just goes to show that make sure you understand what the question is asking, and in an interview you want to understand what the interviewer is asking as well. They might say something that you interpret to have one meaning, but you can always clarify just to make sure you're on the same page. So for example here it says it outputs the string representation, but obviously the code's not outputting anything, and the example is actually not outputting anything either. It expects a returned array. And that's it. So this is a fairly simple one. We'll go over more advanced ones later, so make sure you click subscribe, and hope to see you on some more videos.